I don't think he's going to let up any based on what he's done in just the last 36 hours, taking a 29-hour tour of 9 states. He's not the kind of guy that is going to stop and take a rest, I don't think, but we'll see.
Well, that was my question to you, Tracy. No chance of a vacation for the Clinton family?
He is
he's not the type.
A maniac. Today, when he returned from that 29-hour trip, he went jogging with his daughter Chelsea through the streets of Little Rock. As far as we can tell, he didn't take a nap today. No telling how long he's been up. He just doesn't seem to take breaks. He's beyond that.
Well, Little Rock has a real favorite son, and America has a new president tonight. Tracy, you've done a great job for us there. Go home, or the Holiday Inn, or the Blue Moon Motel, or wherever it is that you're going to hopefully get a good night's rest.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Trace. Poor gal, I think she's all alone out there, isn't she?
Look that way.
Oh. Dave Walker has been covering some of the congressional races for us tonight. We have 7 new seats for the House delegation from California anyway. Dave, how are things shaping up?
Well, as you know, Carol, this is supposed to be the year of the anti-incumbent, year of the woman. Let's see how it's affecting some of the races we're looking at right now. Vic Fazio. And so, at this point, not very good for a year of the women, at least for the case of Patricia Malberg and Patty Garamendi. Back to you, Stan, Carol.
Okay, David, thank you. We're going to switch now to Gordon Tokomatsu. He is standing by with the man who perhaps had the easiest ride of all in the congressional races hereabouts tonight, perennial successful Sacramento incumbent, Robert Matsui. Gordon?
Stan, that's somewhat of an understatement. It was, I guess you could say, almost a cakewalk for Robert Matsui tonight. We are at his headquarters tonight, and there aren't that many people left here. And part of the reason was it was such an easy race for you.
Well, we were actually here to watch the presidential race and, of course, the 2 Senate races. Barbara Boxer's still up in the air, but we think she's going to win. And obviously, our friend Vic Fazio, that's a very competitive race, although I believe Vic will pull it out at the end.
You have remained optimistic throughout the evening that they will both do well. I mean, are you nervous about it? I mean, how could it affect our delegation in Congress?
Well, if Vic loses, it'd be a tremendously destructive thing for the state of California. He's a 5th-ranking member of the House of Representatives and certainly one of the leaders on the Appropriations Committee. But I think he'll pull it out, and I think Barbara Boxer will as well. But we could lose a lot of seniority if we lose Vic Fazio and certainly some of the other members of our delegation that we're looking at numbers for. George Brown, the chairman of the Science and Technology Committee, he's ahead by 10%, but it's still a very competitive evening.
We are looking at an election year in which there is an anti-incumbency sort of a flavor out there among the electorate. Is this what you think Mr. Fazio is coming up against?
Well, I think so. There's no question there's been an anti-incumbency mood in the country, and certainly California is part of it. At the same time, as I indicated, Vic will win this race, but he has a new district. About 60% was new, and at the same time, it takes a while before your constituency gets to know you, and I think once he survives this, things will be much easier for him in the future.
Yeah. You heard the remarks earlier from Mr. Clinton with his acceptance speech, the president-elect. What can we expect from a Clinton presidency, and what can we expect from the way the Congress is going to treat Mr. Clinton?
I think that the Congress will work very well with President-elect Clinton. You're going to have a Democratic-controlled House and Senate, and of course the presidency is in the Democratic hands as well. And I think for the first time in 4 years we'll see vision, we'll see direction in this country, and the Congress will want to work with them. We know that there's a lot of problems out there. We know there's voter frustration. I think the whole first 100 days, 6 months will be devoted to economic growth. We'll be trying to deal with the long-term deficit problems, and of course we'll try to do something short-term to jumpstart this economy by giving some tax relief perhaps.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Congressman Robert Matsui, coming to a rather easy win tonight over Bob Dinsmore in his race, and he had some comments for us about the other congressional and Senate races as well tonight. Reporting live, this is Gordon Tokomatsu. Stan and Carol, back to you.
Okay, Gordon, thank you for that report. You know, the state Supreme Court redistricted many of the congressional seats in the state, and that has made some of the races tonight so very interesting, including Fazio's race, for instance, where his old district was split up, I think, 6 different ways, introducing many new Republican faces.
And one entirely new district that finds Garamendi and Pombo fighting for that one.
7 new districts in all, really, because California gained 7 new seats with the new Congress. Republicans are making significant gains statewide because of the redistricting. It looks like right now that Democrats are holding on to 27 seats in the California congressional delegation. Republicans are up to 25. One incumbent right now is losing. That is Democrat Rick Lehman, of Fresno. He is losing by 2 percentage points. Vic Fazio, at last and latest count, is ahead of H.L. Richardson by 42 whole votes. And so it does look like Republicans are gaining clout in the California congressional delegation. Going into tonight, the Democrats had a 7-seat edge.
And a race that is undecided still at this moment, and one that looks touch and go, is the one that Vic Fazio is fighting against H.L. Richardson. And Mike Lurie standing by with Vic Fazio right now. Mike?
Stan, indeed, it is a very tight race between Congressman Vic Fazio and his challenger, H.L. Richardson. We are reporting live from the Sudworks in Davis, which is the site of the celebration here. Congressman, you're in for a pretty tough fight. It looks like this is going to go well past midnight.
Well, I think we all understood that. It seemed to us it was going to be that way from the very beginning.
You've obviously got a very spirited crowd behind you here. You've got a new district, too, which makes this an additional challenge because a lot of the voters are unfamiliar with Vic Fazio in some of the areas north of here.
Well, we had about a 35% increase in new people, and obviously we lost a lot of old friends, too. But it's going along, and we're optimistic, we're hopeful.
Are you willing to make any projections at this point, or is it still too early to call?
I don't think we even know where the votes are coming from one county to the next or within a county, so it would be idle speculation. It's just going to be a long evening, and I think everybody's going to have to sit on pins and needles till we get there.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, Congressman. Vic Fazio is, as we mentioned, fighting for re-election here. He is a 7-term incumbent trying to go back to the United States Congress for the 3rd Congressional District. It is a newly redistricted entity, and very spirited crowd behind me, as you can tell. And right now, as we said, it is a neck-and-neck race. The latest projection showing about 47, 46. They're within a few hundred votes of each other. We'll be following this race all night long. This is Mike Lurie reporting live from the Sudworks in Davis. And back to you in the studio now, Stan and Carol.
Yeah, actually, Mike, you can tell Congressman Fazio we have the latest here. 22.5% of the precincts in. He's leading now by 42 votes. 42 votes ahead. Okay. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
He'll want to know that. Economy and the jobs, those are the 2 #1 issues, I guess, on the minds of voters tonight. And Tom Sullivan is joining us now to talk a little bit more about that. For the last 12 years, the type of economics we've been hearing so much about, trickle-down.
Trickle-down.
Is that dead now?
Everybody learned about trickle-down in this election, and one of the things about it is that Governor Clinton, or President-elect Clinton, I guess we got to get used to the new term, has said that trickle-down is basically dead. Although if you look at Bill Clinton's economic program, you'll find a lot of, well, trickle-down's another name for supply-side economics that was invented back when President Reagan came to office. And there's a lot of supply side in his program. He's talking about an investment tax credit for manufacturers, a research and development credit, boosting investments, infrastructure, education, health, and so forth. So there's a lot of supply side in Governor Clinton's message, and maybe that's why it was so popular. It had a little bit of that, that trickle down, even though he won't say it, I'll say a little bit of trickle down in there.
Well, then, could he be working on a new term called trickle up?
No, actually, there is a trickle up, and that's traditionally the Democratic approach, is to get money into the hands of the people through government programs, and they will spend the money, which will create jobs, and factories will hire more people, and business will do well. Trickle down is where you give incentives to business, and they will create jobs that will get money into the hands of the people, and the cycle, it just depends upon which side of the cycle you come into. So the reason I think that Clinton was so popular with his economic plan was because it was a little bit of a hybrid between the traditional trickle up and trickle down.
Well, let's talk about interest rates, Tom. Number one, what needs to happen to them? And number two, what's going to happen to them?
Well, interest rates need to stay low. We need to be able to fund that huge debt that we have across this country with lower interest rates. And at the same time, there's been a lot of concern that interest rates are going to go up under a government spending program. Traditionally, that has happened in the past. However, the markets have been pushing interest rates a little bit higher in anticipation of a Governor Clinton election. That has happened. Now, most economists are saying look for it to go up a little bit higher in reaction to Governor Clinton's election. But 6 months from now, watch them lower than where they are today. So,
is the new president going to turn the money supply loose, and isn't that likely to drive interest rates up again if he does that?
That's the problem, is how much can he do? Are they hamstrung in Washington? And the question is, and that's the fear, I guess, is the check and balance system that we've had is that that's gone now with a Democrat in the White House, democratically controlled Congress. Then the question, we still have Alan Greenspan over at the Federal Reserve. The question is then, will they just get out there and pump this money out without any regards to the credit markets, or in other words, interest rates? Governor Clinton has said a number of times in the last couple of weeks that he would not do that. He would slow down the spending programs, slow down the government programs, if he saw where interest rates were going higher. So we're expecting to see maybe a little reaction, not so much from the stock market, but more from the bond market the next couple of days, the next couple of weeks, until he gets in office and actually demonstrates to Wall Street that there probably isn't any runaway spending, and then watch interest rates go lower than where they are.
And he has some unsuccessful Democratic strategy on Jimmy Carter's past record. When he took office, he did pull the plug on the money supply.
He did, and it was a good laboratory, a good experiment for Governor Clinton to look back and say, right, I don't want to do that.
Right, exactly.
And finally, Tom, I'm kind of curious here about your success rate. I know you conducted your own informal survey today as to who would win the presidential nomination. Who won?
Oh, well, I just did a little informal survey, and it was President Bush came in first, Ross Perot came in second, and Governor Clinton was just ahead of Andre Moreau, so you can tell who listens to me.
I was listening, and what went through my mind was that you were in big trouble.
I think so.
But nonetheless, we still respect everything else you said tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom, for coming. Stay with us. We'll be back with more of Decision 92 in just a moment.
We promised we'd give you those libertarian numbers too. Clinton, this is with 22% of the precincts in statewide. Clinton in California has 44%. Bush has 36%. Ross Perot almost 19% now. And libertarian candidate for president Andre Moreau has 0.5%, 0.5%.
Alice Scott standing by live now at Feinstein headquarters at the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco. Alice, I believe that's Dianne Feinstein's daughter who is speaking now. Is that correct?
That is correct. Catherine Feinstein. She's described as a lawyer and a brand new mother, and she's speaking now on behalf of her mother. Very, very proudly, I might add. Feinstein supporters are awaiting her to arrive down here at the ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel with anticipation. We expected Dianne Feinstein to arrive long before now. However, we're told that she's waiting first for her opponent, John Seymour, to concede, and that has not happened yet. Of course, this is a history-making race with a lot at stake. Dianne Feinstein would become the very first female elected to the U.S. Senate from California, and if Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein win together, that will make history as well. Back to you in the studio. We'll let you know when Dianne Feinstein is here.
Alice, isn't it also possible Feinstein may be waiting to see what happens in the Boxer-Hutchison race? If it becomes more conclusive on Boxer's behalf, I'm sure they'd both like to appear on a winning rostrum together.
Yes, Stan, that is another possibility. Her daughter has just announced that her mother is here. Dianne Feinstein is on the stage. I'll step aside now so that you can see the action.
Okay, thanks, Alice. This is the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco, and Dianne Feinstein's daughter, Catherine, encouraging and applauding on her mother, who's about to make her entrance into the ballroom.
And it looks like what Dianne Feinstein is about to embark upon is filling the remaining 2 years of Governor Wilson's old Senate term. And that is rather ironic when you consider that the two battled out an election for governor 2 years ago, and Pete Wilson beat Dianne Feinstein. And in some sense, this must be a little bit of sweet revenge for her.
John Seymour, of course, was Pete Wilson's hand-picked man to succeed him in the U.S. Senate. There she is, Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein from San Francisco making her victory speech tonight, a night that a lot of California political observers have been waiting for a long time, for a woman who, in the laboratory of politics at least, has been seen as a comer for a long time, one who's often been mentioned as a vice presidential candidate. Now, tonight, she is finally on the road to national politics, and the outcome of all of this may turn out to be most interesting. Steve Swat, you have any thoughts on that?
Well, Dianne Feinstein and Barbara Boxer become the 5th and 6th women in the U.S. Senate, which is an amazing situation given the fact that going into this evening there were only 2. So clearly it was the year of the woman in the U.S. Senate. Right now, Dianne Feinstein leads John Seymour by about 11 percentage points, and that likely will turn into a much larger landslide. That's because due to some problems in San Francisco, 0 votes have been reported and released out of San Francisco, where Dianne Feinstein likely will win by a large margin. Feinstein is winning in San Diego County, which is somewhat of a surprise. She is winning big by 21 percentage points right now in Los Angeles County. She is losing in John Seymour's home county of Orange, however. Interesting, California really is a land of the landslides when it comes into play regarding the U.S. Senate races. 13 Senate elections in California have been decided by margins of 10% or greater, and in 10 of those, the margin actually was 19% or greater. Now, Dianne Feinstein joins 4 others, Richard Nixon, Claire Engel, Hiram Johnson, and William McAdoo, as the only individuals in California to win their first runs at the U.S. Senate for the U.S. Senate by 10% or greater. And let me leave with one final quote. This is a direct quote. Quote, "I can best describe this Congress by saying it is out of touch with its constituents, out of control in its spending, out of sight in its arrogance. I am hopeful the voters will rotate out all the rascals, myself excluded." Unquote. John Seymour.
Whoa. Prophetic words tonight.
Yes.
Dianne Feinstein there with her husband, a tall fellow standing on her right, Richard Blum, and of course her daughter Catherine on her left. You heard somebody from the audience call out Madam President. Everybody got a chuckle out of that because in the flights of fancy, at least, of a lot of California political observers for a long time, they seem to think Dianne Feinstein, who did seem to manage one of the most unmanageable cities in the world rather deftly for more than a couple of terms, might go all the way.
And as you point out, when Walter Mondale chose Geraldine Ferraro as his vice presidential candidate, there was some speculation that Dianne Feinstein could have been that woman that he chose, and perhaps she did come very close. Who knows?
I suppose it's interesting to talk about California and perhaps nationwide the year of the woman. I suppose in New York it was the year of the bald-headed men because Geraldine Ferraro lost in the Democratic primary, as did Elizabeth Holtzman, and the two combatants,
bald-headed guys.
Abrams and D'Amato, were bald-headed men.
Right.
And then the 2 of them went on to battle it out tonight.
That's right.
And from last we heard, D'Amato has won in New York.
I believe that's true.
KCRA-TV in Sacramento, California, taking a look at the race for the United States Senate in the Golden State. This is live C-SPAN 2 coverage of Election Night 1992.
After this.